Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host, and here we are to fight CPS and get your children back. I want to thank Mr. Davis, Vincent W. Davis, a family law attorney whose law firm, Vincent W. Davis Associates, has provided this podcast. If you have any questions for him, please call him at 888-888-6582. I'll talk more about Mr. Davis in my podcast. Well, you found me through YouTube. Actually, you found me through Facebook, Fighting CPS. And I'm glad you are following me now on YouTube and that you wanted to find out how to fight CPS and how to keep your children or get your children back. And I know that you all are having a terrible time with CPS. And why I do that? Because every time I talk to somebody, whether they're from one of the 50 states, they all have something in common. Their children were taken away from them unnecessary, and their CPS case is upside down. Now, I need to talk to you about the Child Protection Agency. That's the one that's got you really confused. Good morning, Frederick Connie. Okay, thank you for telling me you're in Massachusetts going through a case. What city in Massachusetts are you? Well, the CPS, when I say CPS, I say Child Protection System. Each state has different acronyms of what their CPS is called. But it's the ones that deals with neglect and abuse and all supposed to be family reunification. Boston, okay. There was a girl not too long ago in Boston, Massachusetts, that was going through surgery, and she placed her children with her grandmother in Rhode Island, and the social workers in Boston drove to Rhode Island and took her children. That's not you, is it? I can't remember the name there. Um, yeah, it's um, okay. So you're a different case, and so I understand, Frederick. And the problem is, the CPS uses policemen to intimidate you. And was your child in extreme danger in the car when the policeman approached you in your car? Let me explain to you, since you brought this up, Frederick, Connie. Um, Anybody can visit your home, but you don't have to open your door to anybody. That's your castle. You choose to open your home. You don't have to open to policemen. You don't have to open to social workers. The only time that a policeman can come in your home if there's extreme danger going on, like a shooting in progress, a knife stabbing going on in progress, slamming the child against the wall, ongoing extreme behavior, they can come in. Otherwise, they need a court order. It also goes for the Child Protection Agency. The Child Protection System, whatever it's called in there, CPS, they have to have a court order to go in your home or even take your children. Now, if you're in your car, your children on extreme behavior, you can talk to the officer, but make sure your doors are locked. And if he cite you for something, then go ahead and sign the ticket that you promised to appear. but you don't have to give up your child. You do not have to give your child unless a crime is in progress. I don't know why the police officer was stopping you. Okay, you're homeless at the time. There's not a law that says you can't raise your children if you're homeless. Long if they're fed, long if they go to school, and you take care of their medical needs, then you can't be cited with anything. Being homeless is not a crime, by the way. It's not a crime. And a homeless, is something that you may not have choose, and you have to live out of your car. They can see your ID. They can check if there's warrants against you and those kinds of things. If there's an outstanding warrant, they can't arrest you, and they would take your children. But if you don't have any warrants, and so that means you haven't you haven't promised to appear somewhere. That's what a warrant is for. You're okay there. Now, how did they approach you when you're in your car? How did the police approach you? No, unless there's a court order, police are not allowed at your visit with your daughter. I tell you what. Would you like to be a guest on my show and talk on my show? Would you like to do that? You can call in to 626-698-0990, and you can talk on the show, and we can understand more about your case and help you. We can understand more about your case and help you, Frederick Connie, there. You need to start from the beginning so I can piece together what you're trying to tell me. Now, for some of those who just turned in, you can text me comments about CPS, either about your case or you want to comment on something. I'd love to have text messages. Frederick Connick has already started to do so. And all I ask is you tell me your city and state and your name. Now, if you're from a foreign country, you're welcome to text in. I have had text messages from Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Ghana, Mexico, and Mozambique. And I'd love to hear from you. Just put your country and your city. So in the States, it's your city and your state. And outside the world, just give me your country and your city. And then type what CPS question you have. I've found out that, like in the United Kingdom, the same things are happening in the United States are happening in the United Kingdom. They're taking children unnecessary, meaning that they're overstepping their bounds. They think they have the authority on there. You need to know your constitutional and your civil rights. You have to know that. You're not required to talk to a social worker if you don't want to. You can just basically just say yes, no answers. It's important to be courteous, but yes, no. If they ask you, are you living in such and such, you say yes. If you're not, you say no. And then if it gets too many questions or anything like that, you have to tell them that I need to speak to my attorney. Right away, they don't know you have an attorney, so that tells them you do. And you're allowed to talk to your attorney before you talk to them any further. And the same thing goes with the police. Have them issue the ticket if you did something, a traffic violation or something. But being homeless is not a crime. Neglecting your child or abusing your child is a crime. But they can also be repaired and stuff if you have family reunification. And so I'm saying, everybody out there, text in your messages or call in at 626-698-0990 if you want to be a guest on my show today. If you want to be a guest on my show. Now, let's say you don't want to talk now. You want to be a guest on my show later on, because I have 14 podcasts 7 days a week, twice a day, in the morning and the evening. All you do is you email my producer, Grace, who works very hard with producing of this podcast. and you email her grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. And she'll put you one of my 14 podcasts and make arrangements for you. All you do is email her. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. So those are the ways you can interact with my podcast. I'm a family man. I'm a husband, and I care about you all as people because I know what you're going through. I did go through it myself. I've been fighting them for 14 years, going on 15 years. And first 5 years was talking to them about allegations that weren't true. They didn't ever go any further about my children. But in the year 2015, that's 5 years from 2010, when I started receiving the allegations, they wanted to enter my home. Now, they had entered my home in the past a couple times. But what has transformed in my home lately was that in 2015, I had my parents' belongings in the home, so it gave a clutter effect. And with the boxes piled on boxes and the furniture on furniture, it was a lot of clutter in there. But my children had their own bedroom. There were no boxes or furniture in their bedroom that could hurt them or extreme danger. They had their own bathroom, everything upstairs. There's nothing up there that was belonging to my parents. My parents were dying, and I was sorting through their items downstairs. And I have a really big home, and so it was really, it was sad because what had happened is that I was tricked to let them in my home. If I knew what I knew now, I would have done things a lot differently. I would never allow them in my home because they're going to see things in your home that they'll use against you. Also, if you talk to them like I did, I talked to them too much, they'll use stuff against you when you talk to them. So I'm telling you, do not talk to social workers. Do not talk to police. Do not allow them in your home. Do not allow them to take your children. They're going to sit there and ask because they want to get your permission. Do not give up your educational or your medical rights to your children. Yeah. You see, the police took your child without your permit. Well, they got your permission because you hand the child over to them. That was a mistake that all of us do. My children were trafficking out of school. They're in school, and the CPS workers went to the school without a court order, without anything, and took our children. The schools were in arrears for not enforcing what's on the emergency card. When you arrest your kids in September, you put down the people who may or may talk to your children or take them out of school or pick them up. I can guarantee you didn't put the CPS worker or the policeman on that card. So they violated your constitutional rights. Also, the school is set up for a lawsuit for allowing the children to be taken out of school without your permission. That's the sad part. The CPS does not ask for permission. They just they do illegally traffic. They want to get your children put into foster care, the foster care system. And the foster care system is a lot of things. It could be a shelter, a temporary shelter. It could be a group home. It could be a single family home, or it could be a hotel. They want to take your children, and they're not all in extreme danger. Mine weren't. Mine were not. Mine were not even home when they took them. My young son I picked up from school, and I was driving to pick up my wife. And when I saw a black and white go past me and make a U-turn and come up behind me, I should have at that time, when the officer said, "I'm stopping you because you ran a stop sign," which wasn't true. The detective that was following put him up to it. I should have said, "Fine, give me the ticket. I'll sign for it. I'll be off on my way." I did not have to go with the policeman unless he had a court warrant. That was the sad part. I did not know the law. I did not know the law. And so he took me to come home. And then what had happened is both the detective, the 3 social workers, 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, all these people came trampling into my home with their combat boots and their fatigues, and they tracked mud and dirt in the house. They stepped on furniture, broke furniture. They had no regard for safety of me and my son or safety with the people. I mean, they just were really mean and vindictive. And I know what you're going through, and that was wrong. My mistake was I should have assisted for a ticket for running the stop sign and then continued with my way and picked up my wife. I also, this is the number one rule I tell everybody, you need to have an attorney. And I'm not talking about a public defender or the court appointed attorney. I'm talking about a real professional attorney that does family law, that knows about juveniles, knows about children, knows about how to fight CPS and get your kids back. And that was Mr. Vincent W. Davis that I should have got at the beginning of my case, because I had 3 children that were stolen by CPS. They were trafficking and they were being alienated from the parents. And they took my son who was with me because I gave him up because I thought that was the right thing to do. I later find out you don't have to do that. Also, the children taken from my school were not supposed to be taken. The school should have called me and said, there's somebody that wants to take your children. Do we have permission? So they did a no-no right off the bat. They did a no-no. And I didn't know it at the time. And it's hard. It's hard still talking about this case. I talk about it twice a day, my case, and I hope that I can share some things that can help you all. I know it's hard to sit there and tell a policeman no or a social worker no, but an easy way to diffuse all this is just say, I need to talk to my attorney first before I talk any further. You want to take my children? I need to talk to my attorney first. And don't let them in your home. Because if they break the door down, there can be a lawsuit against them. There could be a lawsuit against them. And why social workers are so vendetta, it's unbelievable. I mean, my feeling about social workers is zero because of how they treated other parents like yourselves and me. Also, when 8 social workers that worked for CPS in Arizona decided to think it was funny, they wore pink t-shirts and they say on the front, we are professional kidnappers. And on the back, it says, where are your children? Those are the social workers that your kids are being entrusted to, which is wrong. The social workers are bad. I don't care what state. I've talked to all the states, over 500 people, and the common thing they have is the cruelty that social workers do to y'all. It's a sad state affair. They don't care about family reunification. They don't care about your constitutional or civil rights. Their goal is to put that child and have that case open so they can collect money. And I'm talking big money, like $20,000 per child per month. And you have that times 3 children, that's $60,000. That's how much they're getting from me. And on top of that, if there's 100 people in child CPS, and you had all this money in a year's time, it's over $6 million a month. It's ridiculous. $6 million a month. It's a $38 billion business a year that they make, and it's solely for the money. Welcome, Sadie Jensen, and she's from the country of Denmark. Oh, wow. We have a new country, Denmark. Glad to welcome you here, Sandy Jensen. Do you have a CPS case that you could talk about? And in Denmark, what city are you calling from in Denmark? And I'm very curious what CPS is like there in Denmark. So right now, we have Boston, Massachusetts, and we have Denmark to have text in messages. And I'm sorry that the police got your children. What they did was illegal. Frederick, Connie, where's your case now at the moment? Where's your case now? What has been done with your children? Where are your children? So, Sandy Jensen from Denmark, what CPS question do you have? Now, you know, CPS, they're corrupt. They're not transparent. There's no accountability. They don't believe in family reunification. They pit the parents against each other. They pit the children. They do a lot of alienation, which is illegal. You're not supposed to alienate your kids from you as parents, but they do it. They're not supposed to do child trafficking, but they do it. They take children without court orders and they dupe it because you're not smart enough to know the law. And they say, well, we'll get your permission. And they use policemen as a backup, as intimidators. And my case was awful. If I knew what I knew now, I would never have my children taken from my home. And I would have had this case wrapped up in a short period of time. It lost my home. I had to sell my home to get money to hire an attorney. And I should get into rule number 1, which is, I'm going to give us an analogy here. If you need something done to your heart, which requires someone to do open heart surgery, are you going to have a lay person do the open heart surgery? Are you yourself going to try to do open heart surgery? No, you're going to get a professional, and that's a family lawyer. You need to get a professional lawyer that knows family law, that knows how to deal with juveniles, that knows how to fight CPS and get your case back. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, what can you do about my case? Well, every case is different, but they all have one thing in common. Their children are taken away, and they're taken away too soon, too quick. The kids were not in danger, but they still took away the kids. They put them more in danger. When my 3 kids were taken, they put them in danger because the foster care place they put into was a shelter, a concrete block shelter building, very sterile. It was next door to the juvenile prison. So in the schoolyard, they could play with the prisoners, which is inappropriate and wrong. On top of that, they had a beehive that was stinging the children. That was their idea of protection with my children. And on top of that, their schooling, they weren't taken to the school of origin. They were taken and read books to. Books. My children were in STEM programs, meaning where they took a science class, technology class, engineering class, and a math class. They were pursuing engineering degrees. My 2 boys were. And my daughter was pursuing, she wanted to be a volleyball player. But they all were in good academic programs, and they destroyed that. They took them away. Their idea of a shelter was a sham. The food was terrible. When we went there to visit them there, my children were so distraught. They didn't know. CPS won't explain. So that's why I'm telling you, you need to get an attorney to fight CPS. You need someone that can strategize and knows how to fight them and bring them back. And it's really hard to find that person. It was hard in my case. What I do now, or have been doing for the last 15 years, is I go on Google things and I go and look at all the different things out there. I just type in the state that's having the problem and what the problem is. I find it. But I also find a lot of awful things. I've studied the history of CPS, how to get started, how the other programs that help out in social service got started. There's many programs that offer benefits, and there should be offered to families. It's very important because studies have shown that the biological mom and dad are better than any other parent they ever come up with. The biological parents. That's a pretty heavy statement to say, but that's what studies have proven. So you're faced with this attorney, and you say, "Well, why do I need it?" Well, I've already told you it's like getting something done in your heart. You need it, but take this other analogy. You know the story of Alice in Wonderland. She falls in a rabbit hole, and then she enters so many different places, doors, and she doesn't know what's up. She goes around and spins around with these people for a long time. That's what it is to be in CPS. They are so corrupt, and they will lie. That's the worst part. They will lie. And they'll drag it out so they get as much money off your child. It's a money thing with them. So when you make that list, and I tell people when they look for attorneys to go make a list of at least 10 names with the city they're in and the next largest city over. So you have to list 2 cities. You say, where are family lawyers in, say, Rockville and Baltimore, Maryland? Baltimore is a big city nearby. So you get a whole list of them. And you want to weed through them and pick 10 you're going to call. And the 10 that you pick from should have some background in CPS because that's who you're fighting. That's who you're fighting. Okay. Again, we're about halfway through the show. I want to remind everybody that you can text in. We've had Sadie from Denmark and Frederick Connie from Boston, Massachusetts. They have texts and comments. I'm welcome to more. Also, if you want to talk on the show, you can call in at 626 698 0990. And that's my direct line to my office phone. And during this hour, I will talk to you on that. And you can talk back and so forth and be a guest on my show. You just won't have the camera option there. So please text in a message about CPS and how it can help you. And again, it's open to anybody that has a CPS problem. Anybody that has a CPS problem. Now you've gotten this down to the list of the items, and you still got to deal with the details or whatever your case is about. And it's very important. Now I'm going to give you an attorney that you see after your list of 10, you want to choose 5 that you're going to call. Well, one of the 5 I'm going to tell you the call is Vincent W. Davis. And he can be reached at 888-888-6582. And make sure when you call in, you say that Bob Pace sent you. And that if you talk to Mr. Davis, make sure you tell him that Bob Pace, that you talked to Bob Pace. So it's important there. So when you call in, he can offer you a consultation for 30 minutes for $60. If you look at the bottom of my screen, there's a link that takes you right to calendars that you can place, what time you want with him. And lastly, I want to remind everybody that you can be on the show by writing an email to my producer, Grace, at vincentwdavis.com, who will help you get you onto a file. So anyway, it's so important that you get that attorney and make that call. That 30 minutes, they'll do all the strategies of how to fight and save that, save your children, because you don't want your children to be taken from you. It's a terrible feeling. Hello, Yarva Mendendez. Hello, what is the topic today? I just logged in. The topic today is how to fight CPS with me and how to hang on to your children and not do some of the silly things that I did. And one of them is actually my rule number 3 is you don't talk to social workers. You don't let social workers in your home. You don't do that with the police either. They're not in the home either. Too many times police and social workers exercise overburden their power. You need to check balance with them and point out to them, you know, what the what this should always be. And simple short answers with the policeman, social worker will go a far piece. I'm not saying you need to ignore them, but once they put their card on your door, then it's time that you call them back and find out, when you can come and talk to them and what you have to have with you when you do talk to them. So with that rule number 3, don't talk to social workers, don't talk to police. I made a mistake in doing so. And what did the policeman do? He duplicated what CPS had done, but he made my wife a misdemeanor. They pressed criminal charges. Not only did CPS turn in false allegations, but they did that too. They pressed charges that was ridiculously. You have to be very careful with your children. If you're homeless, don't let them take your child unless you've broken the law or something. And being homeless is not against the law, by the way. Leaving a car in the same spot for 72 hours is against the law, too. Now, there's another part of the rule number 3 that's kind of overlooked. It's called medical trafficking. Now, medical trafficking is where they take your child illegally when you brought them in for a medical issue. Now, Yari says, I've reported caseworkers violating clients' rights. Very important to communicate with them through email or text and not on phone calls. They manipulate the calls. Well, I did that for a year and a half with texts and emails, but it got me nowhere. I had to get an attorney to get my kids back. But I agree, it needs to be very important. And one way to do it is you got to keep good records. So my rule number 2 is that you have a notebook. You start off with a fresh one. And that should be all your CPS incidents. Big or small, you need to list them. And you do it by the first line with the date and the time and the people involved with the case. Then the next line is what the incident was about. What was the incident about? And so there's rule number 2 with this notebook. You put the date and time, and then you want to put who was involved. Who was involved. And then after that, you put the outcome. How was it solved? Is there an outcome? You may have to fill that later, but you do that for each incident. You may have 10 on a page, but you have the room and you have the note being taken. Also, in the notebook, you may want to set off sections for important matters, some legal matters. You need to organize your information and put it together is what you need to do. So with that notebook, you keep writing in and then you write the outcome of the incident. It may not be known for weeks or months. And sometimes you refer to your notes a month later, you forget everything. So I strongly recommend that you get all the incidents that were there, because good or bad, you need to list them all. You want to list your with that notebook, it's going to keep all your notes. It's very important. I didn't take notes, and that was a mistake on my part. I didn't get an attorney. That was a mistake on my part. Now, Yari Mendez says further, I've reported caseworkers violating client rights. Very important to communicate with them through email or text and not on phone calls. I agree. She says Yari is a former service provider for cases of OCFS. And I've asked many times to change my satisfactory reports. I refused to do it, and the case was removed from our agency. Oh, that's sad. That's sad, Yari. Where they go ahead and they change, legal documents. That's really sad. Yari, if you'd like to be talking on the podcast, you're welcome to call in at 626-698-0990. Love to hear from you. Now, I've said you the 3 rules. Hire an attorney, get a notebook, and don't let them take your children. And it's best you be courtesy with them. Demand a business card. All of them have it. And then it is hard. It is really hard. Because I keep thinking about one of my children, our children, that was taken from my wife and me. And she was convinced at the age of 12, when she was taken from us, to divorce her parents, to change her name, to seal her birth certificate, and be adopted by a foster care family, which at the age of 21 now, she has no touch with them because they've done her wrong. Nothing is ever green on the other side of the pasture. You should be happy and contented with it. You have to understand that Child Protection Services is your enemy. They're not your friend. They do not like seniors. They don't like elders. They don't like moms and dads. And they lie and they cheat, and they are very deceptive. They use the police wrongly. They try to exercise their muscles, and they take away your children when they're not in extreme danger. So make sure you think about rule number 1, that you get that attorney. It's so important to get that attorney, because you need that attorney through the life of your case. So I'm telling you, is that you got to research. That's one thing that I wish I'd known what I knew now, 15 years ago. It's all about research. You need to know who your adversary is. You need to know how to beat them, and you need to know that an attorney will do that. But you also have to research, and I do a lot of research. How I research is I put the name first, the CPS name of whatever entity, the state. I put in the state name. So If it's New Mexico, I put New Mexico, and then my question is CPS allegations. And so it's all sorted to New Mexico. And I have to learn like there's welfare and institution codes. Each place is different. Every state has a government website dealing with social service, dealing with CPS. And one way to do it is just put the name of that state and then say um, the floor there and stuff like that. So um, you got to really think with that knowledge about how to attack and how to get your kids back. There's 388 motions. There's motions to change your current case plan. There are motions to change the jurisdiction of your cases. You can replace judges. You can replace public defenders. There's a lot of things you can do, and you need to know them. You don't have a handbook. None of us born in this world to think that CPS would be a problem with this. We didn't know. I didn't know about CPS when they first started calling it. I had no idea who they did. But my in-laws, and one of them was my wife's sister, who was a social worker, knew exactly what she was doing when she called CPS out here in California and said these false allegations. The allegations were so bad. And I asked my in-laws, where were there to protect my wife, who went through a lot of problems in her family growing up. You know, she had extreme abuse. Their form of punishment was putting hot water and coffee on her, or letting her drown in the water, or letting her brother molest her and her parents wouldn't protect her, or let her go to a concert at 15 where she got raped and had her first child. That is all awful. That's wrong. Those are the parents that are making the allegations that me and my wife were not taking care of our children. There's nothing wrong with them. They were maintaining A's and B's. They had plenty of food in their stomach. They had clothes. They had showers. They had clean rooms. It was sad. It was really sad what they did because they put our children through so much turmoil. By the time we got them back, they're messed up. Even today, 2 of the 3 that we got back, our boys are still messed up. They are. It's sad. It's so sad. So, when you say you're a service provider, Yari, what kind of service provider were you? It sounds like you worked for DCF, which is a CPS, part of the CPS system. You were removed from the agency if you refused to do it. Yeah. The report things. There is so sad. I mean, I just think about those social workers with the pink t-shirts. We were professional kidnappers. That's the attitude that CPS has. And I don't care what state you're in, it's all the same. It's all the same. A mother in Boston, Massachusetts goes in for surgery. She prearranged ahead of time to have her kids be watched by her mother in another state. She goes in for their social workers work at the hospital. Where are your children? And I guess she was on the drugs. She said she didn't know, whatever it was. And they found her children. They went and drove from Boston, Massachusetts, went into another state's jurisdiction and stole the children from her mother because her mother did not know the law and stuff. And think about that. These social workers in Boston went to another state. There's a thing called the ICPC, which stands for the Interstate Agreement about how children are moved from state to state, and it has to be followed for their protection. There was no protection. There's nothing. They used the guys that, hey, I'm a social worker. You must bow to me. You must do everything I ask. They're not friendly. And that's why you need that attorney. You really do. Trying to fight it yourself was hard for me. I was sitting there seeing so much corruption in mine and stuff that I met with the director, whose idea of office was the Taj Mahal of India. His 11-story building for himself and a few of his supervisors was like out of the Wizard of Oz in the Emerald City, the palace, or what you want to call it. And when I met with him, he had so much gold around his neck he was going to fall over. But I did meet with them and the supervisors, and I got nowhere. Went in one ear, went out the other ear. They could care less about my rights, my civil rights, my constitutional rights. They think that doesn't exist, but it does. There's still rights. There are rights to children. Do not give them up. Do not give them your medical, no matter what. Don't make agreements or things. They'll try to trick you and sign a piece of paper promising this or that. They don't keep promises. They break promises. Again, think of a social worker wearing a pink t-shirt. We're professional kidnappers. That's who they all are. Now, I know that it's an isolated case from Arizona. And I know in Medford, Arizona, it was a big thing, but they were fired. But there's the same mentality, attitude in every state. I had a social worker come on the show who was sitting there saying just the opposite. Oh, it's great. It's this and that. And then it started pinning her down and she got underneath the hot seat and she eventually left. She's from Maryland and says, oh, all our social workers are trained for 6 months, which is the case. Our social workers don't even have a college degree in social work. How are they going to be able to do social work if they don't have a college degree or they don't have training? They need to take social work classes. You know, how to reunite a family, how to observe child abuse or child neglect, how they determine that. Those are things that they need to be, a part of. I understand that a lot of you um, don't have the income, and I agree that is the hardest thing. But you need to somehow get that real attorney. There are attorneys who do pro bono work. They're far and few, but they are able to do that. And you need to try to find them. Because if you don't have representation, they're going to walk all over you. They're going to drag your case on to the child's 18. And they're going to do further mess ups. I have so many mothers on here that they have kids with special needs and they're taken from them and their special needs are not being met. It's really, really bad. It's really run bad now that these. Now, time is marching on. You all have deadlines, you have cases coming up. And one thing I've mentioned is that there's that um, 388 petition here. Where is it? A 388 petition is a form you file with the court to request a hearing to modify, change, or set aside a previous court order or to terminate the juvenile court's jurisdiction on the grounds there are changed circumstances or new evidence. And they have in other states. Some may not have the word 388. But where the 388 comes from is the welfare and institution codes. Now, the welfare and institution codes are different in every state. They all don't have the same. But it's, it states where any parent or other person having an interest into a child who is a dependent child of the juvenile court, even when you're not a party, do not qualify for de facto, may petition a court for a change of court order. That's using a JV 180 form. That's for Oregon. Each state's different, so you want to look it up. You want to look that thing up for your state. And if you do, you got to make sure that you file it with the clerk, the dependency court your case in, so the judge gets it. You also need to serve a copy to each of the children's attorneys and to the social worker attorneys and your attorney, of course, but he should be doing it. The attorney should be doing this, not you, not you. Now, there's another thing called the Indian Welfare Child Act. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I talking about Indians? Well, I'm talking about the Native American Indians. They're the first immigrants, and they have been abused so badly and taken advantage of so bad in the 1800s and still going in the 1900s that they passed this Indian Child Welfare Act called ICWA. The Indian Child Welfare Act was passed in the late 70s, and where it specifically says if a child is of a Native American Indian heritage, they have the blood, and that tribe is recognized as one of the federal recognized Indian tribes, then the CPS worker must notify in writing to the tribes that is so-and-so registered. And if not, could they be registered? You don't have to be registered to get the benefits. You said they need to be registered or are registered. And this Indian Child Welfare Act will help you because the children are turned over to the tribe and placed in one of the family members' homes to get better suited to get returned to the mother and father. Too many parents are losing children, and that's a no-no. That's a no-no. So this Infant Child Welfare Act, they will contact, and if they are registered or could be registered, then the CPS will turn the children over to the tribe. The tribe in turn will put it with a family member who will help that family reunify. They do want to help their own. They do want to help their own. They definitely want to help their own. Now, another form that can really help you is called the Juvenile Dependency Flow Chart. That's a real helpful information because it says where it starts. And when they have these allegations, there are two types: professional and lay people. Lay people have a tendency to tell lies more often than professionals. But the child either is in custody or not in custody. And when it goes in custody, a petition is filed. Then there's your initial detention hearing, then a jurisdictional hearing, and then a disposition hearing. And there's a lot of things that go on with it, but you need to really look at that one. That's a real important document. Real important document. Now I have about 4 minutes left. And I haven't heard anything further from Sandy from Denmark, but I'd love to hear something. Yari Melendez has been talking up and how CPS is treated to them, and gave us some ideas there. I appreciate what you write there. Frederick Connie talked about, and they just took her child without the legal documentation. They just really. Frederick talked a lot there. Again, Frederick, if you want to be on, that's great. Frederick Conning, and she was from Boston, Massachusetts. Okay, you have a status hearing June 3rd. Okay, that means they're still thinking about keeping your kids or maybe returning your kids. I hope it's returning your kids. And if you want to talk on my show further, you can talk to tonight. Tonight I'll be on at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then, of course, then tomorrow morning I'm on again at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Anyway, I really hope you stick and get those 3 rules done. Get that attorney. Take that notebook. Don't talk to social workers. Be nice to them. And I really hope that your case does finish up. Stay with it. Don't give up. It's going to be hard. They're hoping to break you. But you don't want your children to be divorced from you either. And so I'm telling you right now is that this is your first time listening and making a few comments. Try us again later. Try us again later. So those are my times. Don't forget the 3 rules. Call in to 888-888-6582 to get that consultation with Mr. Davis. It's a 30-minute consultation for $60. Don't forget to email Grace at vincentwdavis.com to be a guest on my show. Just tell her morning or night, and Monday through Sunday. Just pick a day there. Rule number 2 again is to take good notes about the incident so you keep track of all that. And then, of course, rule number 3 is good luck. I mean, not necessarily good luck, but you have to really devise a way not to talk to social workers or policemen. Just use yes, no answers. And don't let them take your children. Don't let them take your children. They're the most precious thing. Children needs a father and a mother. Well, I want to thank you all for listening. My time is up. And God bless you all. Keep fighting for your children. And I'll see you tonight. This is Bob Page.